There we go. That's better. Oh, crap. Broadcasting the infinity. I don't want to do that. Alright. We're back to normal now. Sorry about that. Sometimes this microphone likes to get a mind of its own and blow some people up. But, you deserved it. You all supported tokenizing as a dark pattern last time. I think that was our most overwhelming one-sidedness yet, so, that's your karma for tricking people into buying things with Monopoly bucks. Let me know if it's not fixed, by the way. I see it fixed on my end, but for all I know, it still sounds terrible. Okay, today we're going to look at deceptive pricing some more. Today we're going to talk more about some of the most common applications. We went into a couple in more detail last time. We went into some theories of value that underpin software. So today let's just talk about a few very common deceptive pricing strategies and how they're implemented in software and in the real world. So first, a lot of you probably don't remember what buying things on the internet was once like. And this is referring specifically to the retail experience, not to buying digital goods, but to using software to buy real goods. So this is what retail was like before Amazon comes along and revolutionizes everything. So however you feel about Amazon, this is the fundamental internet experience before they became the dominant force on the market. So let's say you want to buy a widget, and you have three options: Site A, Site B, Site C. Those are the prices that you can see when you search, assuming that you see a price when you search. It wasn't that easy to do price comparison back then either. You punch it into Google and see a bunch of scam websites in addition to places actually selling the thing. But alright, three places you can buy it. Let's say those are all websites that are offering it. Where do you want to try buying it from? Well, Site A seems like the cheapest. Let's go to Site A. Please sign up for an account before you can add anything to your cart. Oh, Site A, come on, you're killing me. So what would you do? You'd sign up for an account, username, password, gotta give me your email, sign up for the newsletter, so on and so forth. Alright, let's see what it's going to cost me. Oh, can't tell me until I enter my shipping address. What do you gotta do before you enter the shipping address? Everything else in checkout. You already made an account. Sometimes they even ask you to enter your payment info before you enter your shipping address, and then the shipping address is only confirmed on the very last step, and then you get to the last step, and shipping is $54.99. It's a flat fee on your lovely $3.99 widget. Bummer. How about Site B then? Also makes me sign up for an account. Doesn't tell me that until I have an account. The $5.99 is actually the used price, but you can get a new one for $52.99 with free shipping. So that's an improvement. A couple bucks cheaper than the last one if you're doing the math. Whereas Site C, free shipping on orders of $50 or more. But I only want one. Oh, well, I guess you're going to have to buy more. This one's still stuck around to an extent, and obviously it makes sense. We don't want to mail people packages and flat rate boxes and everything when it costs $10, $15 to ship a parcel when you're only making a few dollars off the purchase. So of course it makes sense that shipping is typically not free unless you exercise a minimum spend. What was common on the internet before Amazon comes along is you wouldn't be aware that this was the case until you got pretty far along with the transaction. So all of these depended on the principle of sunk costs yet again. You advertise the lowest price to drive traffic. You make users become invested, make an account, spend time on your platform, etc. Then once the user's invested, many of them aren't going to bother seeking a better price. They've already gotten as far as they got. The more invested you get up, the better. If you get them all the way to checkout, where it's just a button away from placing the purchase, then you've already won most of the battle. And even if they don't buy anything, you got them to make an account. So you got to harvest some valuable data and possibly get some conversions later, make your platform more valuable to investors, whatever. So even if you don't buy anything, it's still a victory. But the downside to these approaches was clear. Once players like Amazon came into the space, users will run away like the plague when you do this stuff. Everybody hates paying for shipping. It was one of the reasons Amazon became dominant so quickly, is because they removed the ambiguity of what is this actually going to cost me, full stop. So in this case, the dark pattern, although manipulative and annoying, was not really to the business interest of many of these organizations. By not publishing their shipping fees and such up front, many of them ended up becoming destroyed when players that did publish their shipping fees came along, or players that didn't charge. And of course, to be clear, Amazon charges a shipping fee, they just bake it into the price. And the interesting thing about that is, if you think about it, it's not baked into the price of every good, it's averaged across the platform. Some things are really heavy and cost a bunch to ship, and they don't make those more expensive necessarily, and some things are really bulky and they do make them a little bit more expensive, but probably not in proportion to how much they actually cost to ship. For example, that samurai back there, which way is he? Over there. That frame is huge. It probably cost more to ship that frame than manufacture it. I bought it on Amazon. What is that? If you look at parcel shipping for something with that dimensions, it's probably close to $100. So Amazon kind of averages out the shipping across the platform. Sometimes you'll buy something for $2 and they'll lose out big, and sometimes you'll buy something for $200 and they win. And of course, a lot of the shipping fee is baked into the annual fee. So it's not like you're not paying it, and it's not like it's more transparent. In fact, it's actually less transparent because it's just part of your annual membership fee and or randomly baked into the cost of different products. So you could argue that it's even more of a dark pattern because it's even less transparent. But users prefer it not because Amazon helped to break down shipping by line item expense. Users didn't care about that. That wasn't the transparency that users were after. Users care about it because they can see the price up front. So sometimes the kind of transparency that you do is much more significant than being transparent. Giving people a line item breakdown after you've made them make in a cart and get to the end of checkout is not being transparent. That's annoying. Giving people the price up front, that's typically what we've seen that users want to see. And online retail in the modern age, the price is usually the price when you're looking at something online. If shipping's not included, it's probably cheap. The get the checkout and it's $50 shipping scam is kind of over. So is the problem solved? Maybe. Yeah, maybe the internet solved this one on its own. You go, internet. Just patching yourself up as you go. So let's go on to free trials. Free trials. This one's simple, right? Demand a credit card before starting the free trial, then automatically charge it at the end. The more pernicious applications will conceal the amount of the charge and the duration of the agreement. And for that, we got to look at this example because it is terrific. Truly one of the best applications of dark pattern in the industry, coming from, didn't mean to do that, coming from none other than our friends at Adobe. Okay, so what does Adobe do for you here? Well, you get to sign up for beautiful Creative Cloud, and there are of course many offers to sign up for the free trial. It starts at $50 a month inclusive of VAT, but that's after the free trial, of course, so that's not a problem. All right, well, let's click the Start Free Trial button, as this fellow on Twitter who collected this described for us. Well, what do we get here? Cool. 7-day free trial. We owe nothing. 0. And then starting on February 12th, someone's making fun of me for saying Adobe, and I'm going to continue to say Adobe because that's how you pronounce it. Starting February 12th, they're going to bill us $50 a month, or 50 euros a month, 50 Monopoly bucks a month. And they're pretty transparent about it. You know, there's a subtotal, there's 20% VAT because taxes are pretty nasty in Europe, right? But then, it's free because they gave you a discount. Okay, well, hold on. This is the annual plan, paid monthly. What does that mean? I mean, most people would have probably stopped here, said, let's go. Notice another great dark pattern here. They did the anti-check box. If you want to not be contacted by email, you have to check the box. They did default consent there. If you don't check the box, then you have consented to get personalized emails about the products and services. Neat trick, right? Really the masters there at Adobe. Okay, so if you wanted to learn more, and you actually clicked the subscription and cancellation terms button wherever it is, somewhere here, right? Cancel before the 26th of February to get a full refund and avoid a fee is clear in the terms there. But let's go to the cancellation terms. So, you see this screen. Blah, 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 and free trial terms, then subscription terms, then cancellation terms down here. Another neat thing that they pulled off there is that they made it look like you can't scroll here. This looks like all the terms, but it's not. You can actually scroll on this window, as again they point out in the Twitter there. So if you went out to the cancellation terms, if you kept going, you can cancel your subscription via Adobe account page or by contacting customer support. If you cancel within 14 days of your order, you'll be fully refunded. After 14 days, you'll be charged a lump sum of 50% of your remaining contract obligation, and then your service will continue until the end of that month's billing period. So the annual cost of this, remember, if you were doing the math, let's go back to the beginning. Crap. Not go to Twitter. Back to the beginning. £50 a month, so the annual cost is like £600. So if you cancel after 14 days, it's going to cost you an eye-watering €300, pound, whatever monopoly money they're using there. That is a very neat trick, isn't it? So how might you have avoided that? Well, you could have read very carefully. You could have been very careful to cancel within the 14-day period. Or you could have just used a burner card. You could have just used a gift card or some credit card that doesn't matter if it gets charged because it doesn't have any money on it. And in fact, this dark pattern is so common that there's a whole industry now of services that will sell you credit card numbers that only have a preset amount or don't authorize any charges beyond the first day they're activated, so on and so forth, specifically so that you can get around this kind of scam. Which brings the question, if you use your real card, aren't you really consenting to be charged, regardless of whether you read these interesting terms of service? And I guess more importantly, since many of you would probably have said yes, that you didn't read the terms, it's your fault. Well, okay, how about the opposite then? If I use the burner card after reading and consenting to the terms and agreeing to be charged, am I really scamming them? Am I the one doing the dark pattern at that point? Am I manipulating the company into thinking that I'm good for it financially when really I'm not? I'm scamming them. Some companies will blacklist you if you perform this kind of trick and use a burner card to sign up for a free trial, but most don't care. They might not let you do the free trial again in the future. They might charge you immediately, but most companies will just do nothing. They'll try to charge the card, fail, and then just block the account as they should. So something to think about there is the reverse scamming the company. Just to note that not all free trials are like this. Some trials really are free. WinZip, for example, the classic. What does WinZip do? Well, it just bothers you when you start it up. It just says, hey, you really ought to buy this. It kind of guilt trips you. Now, is a guilt trip a little bit manipulative? Yeah, but not really. You're not paying for it. You're using it for free. So it's not really a dark pattern. They're just asking you politely, or maybe annoying you politely is the better term, to buy it. Windows 10 is the same way. You don't have to pay for it. It just bothers you until you do, with a teeny little pop-up in the corner. Not so bad, right? You just have to look at that, please activate Windows forever. And that's really the only downside. Somebody mentioned that burner cards don't work because some things will do like a $1 test charge. Well, sure, but you just have to have a burner card that has $1 on it. And these free services that offer you burner cards that work for a day or work for a certain amount of money will also make sure that test charges go through so that to the service they appear to be real credit card numbers. So we already looked at shipping fees as the canonical example of added fees, but there are also others. And a lot of the time, these fees are presented as being external. So they come from the government, they come from some regulation, or they come from some other requirement that the company is not responsible for. Common real-life examples. Phone providers, all of them, at least back in the day, and it's not so much a problem today, but back in the day, cellular providers, in addition to nickel and diming you for minutes and texts and data and everything, would also randomly add their regulatory surcharges, $3.99 for this, $2.99 for that, $1.99 for something else, and so your bill would have a bunch of weird line items at the end that weren't really mentioned up front. Car dealerships, likewise, when you go to buy a vehicle, it's kind of like pulling teeth to get the actual price of the vehicle, especially if it's a used vehicle. Good luck getting the actual price on that. And that's because there are tons of add-ons, title fee, shipping fee, fees owed to the dealership, etc. Mechanicking, if you go to get an oil change, you'll probably pay $29.99 for the oil change, and then in the tiny little fine print with the asterisk, you also have to pay the shop fee and the disposal fee, $3.99, another $5.99, so on and so forth. Don't even start with mortgages because they're just buried in regulatory fees. And plane tickets as well, tons of regulatory fees there. So if you're following along, all of these industries have a captive audience. The people using them are kind of obligated to be involved with them unless you just don't want to buy, repair a car, own a house, fly in a plane. You can't really not interact with the industry. So they have kind of a captive audience, and all of these are heavily regulated industries. There are tons of rules about what they can do. They rely on the state to provide at least a part of what they need in order to operate. So phone providers obviously rely on common frequencies. Car dealerships rely on a very large supply chain, logistical infrastructure, so on and so forth. So tokenization can help with charging these fees. Yeah, well, if you pair tokenization with the charging of fees, then you can obscure them more carefully. You can charge the fee in the fake currency. And think about it, if you're buying fake currency, I mean, what do you care how many fees they add at the point that you buy the fake currency? If you're buying 1,000 Monopoly bucks for $10 or 1,000 Monopoly bucks for $10 plus fee, it's not really a difference, or at least you're probably not going to consider it that way unless the fee is huge. The common rallying call is to blame regulation. They say they're charging you an extra $5 because of some regulation. So why do they do that? Why do they say that they're charging you more because they're obligated to charge you more? If that's true, is it still a dark pattern? Are they manipulating you? Aren't they being as transparent as possible by showing you the price before the regulation and then telling you what the individual prices of different consequences of regulation are? How do they even determine what the price is for regulation all of the time? When it's on something like gasoline, for example, all of the regulatory prices are baked in. And if you look very carefully at your gas pump in the state of Ohio, you'll see the little mandatory sticker on there. I think it has to be red by law, I'm not sure, but it's a little sticker on there somewhere, and it'll tell you what all the different parts of the gas price are. So where different regulations send gas prices. So for example, it'll say something like the first 40 cents goes to the state, the next $1.20 goes to the local or whatever. It'll show you an up-to-date breakdown that they replace roughly annually. So gasoline has that, but you don't pull up to the gas pump after seeing that it's $1.50 and then they tell you, oh, actually it's an extra $1.70 on top of that for all the different regulatory fees. So, is it a dark pattern if they don't tell you until after you check out, or is it more transparent? Or maybe it's just a cheap political tool. Maybe they just want you to know where the extra costs come from so that you get angry, and then as a member of a democracy, you go out and get angry at your politicians and say, hey, I don't want to pay an extra $1.70 for gas. Is that why the sticker is on the gas pump in the first place too? Well, all right, let's look at the canonical example of this, Spirit Airlines here. Now, they're giving you a plane ticket that flies, 300 something miles for $35, you do the math on how they're actually making money on that. But in their line item cost breakdown, after they show you the base fare, they tell you, oh look, it's the unintended consequences of DOT regulations that require us to charge you $1.86. Oh, well, that's very specific. What are the unintended consequences of DOT regulations? I guess I ought to go look that up and get mad at my politician. And then they also make it very clear that this part here, in addition to that DOT regulation that made them pay more for the base fare, this part here is the government's cut. They get that straight up. And that's all the regulatory fees and stuff. So is this more transparent or less transparent? Well, it's clearly more line item. They show you a breakdown of all the costs. And let's presume that they're being honest here. Well, it's literally more transparent, but is it manipulative? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so another hidden fee you can charge is similar to what Adobe did there, where you charge at cancellation. Termination fees, disposal fees. We talked about how some things cost more than you think they cost because they cost money to throw away. I used the example of a giant couch. Whatever you paid for it, you're also going to be paying for it on the way out when you have to figure out how to get rid of it. So software can do the same thing. It can charge you termination fees like Adobe did, or it can charge you something on your way out the door. But again, if this is in the terms, then you consent to that. And you certainly had the opportunity to read the terms. In Adobe's case, you even had 14 days to cancel. In the real world, many products are sold as a loss so that they can recoup their costs later on the monthly fees. That's why they do this, right? So cell phones through major carriers, for example, sometimes they're even given to you for free so that you can then pay them over time monthly. Different electronics are sometimes sold this way. Sometimes even things like game consoles are sold at a loss, hoping that they recoup the product costs on the games and things that they sell later. Does the same mechanism apply to software? Is software ever sold at a loss, hoping that you recover it later? Well, software doesn't cost anything to manufacture, so a bit of a hard sell there, isn't it? Blocking cancellation is an alternative to charging people to cancel. If they can't cancel, then of course they get to keep paying, which means you get to keep collecting money. This is a favorite of the modern gym industry. Let me know in either chat if you've ever tried to cancel your gym membership and been excited to find out that the requirements to do this are not easy. So some things that they might impose on you are forcing you to come in person, forcing you to do something that most people never do, like sending certified mail or a copy of a voided check or something crazy like that, making you prove your identity by making you bring in like a license or a utility bill or something else, even though clearly your identity has been irrelevant the rest of the time, in the gym example, since you've been attending and they haven't checked. Forcing you to even call them on the phone is a light form of this dark pattern, because of course calling people on the phone is way more annoying than just being able to cancel in the way that you signed up digitally, which is generally the case. So anything to keep on billing, essentially. A lot of industries that do this, like gyms for example, will try to get multiple billing methods from you, or try to use something like your checking account, because it's very difficult for you to just pack up and get a new checking account. A lot harder than it is for you to use a burner card or destroy it. So they'll try to get you on that instead. But as you know, not really a great tactic in the long term, is it, from a business point of view? It only seeks to frustrate people. It kind of works for gyms because you have the guilt aspect and the fact that people tend to forget that they have a gym membership and don't really have a strong motivation to cancel it. If you put up barriers there, people might think, well, maybe I should keep it. And of course, the gym industry would be very strange if you could start and stop your membership at will. It would be difficult for them to establish pricing, figure out how much capacity they have to have in the building. It's complicated on their end. So, not to excuse them, but it's understandable why that particular industry uses this so effectively and Most industries don't. Another industry where this is very common is news media. So if you have a subscription to something like the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, they're not going to let you cancel online. You're going to have to call them. You're going to have to go through the spiel, so on and so forth. Which brings us to just delaying cancellation. You don't necessarily have to block them completely. You just have to make it really hard and annoying and take a long time. So if they cancel today, like in Adobe's case, they're gonna still wait, and then they're gonna charge you, and then they're gonna charge you for the whole month that follows. Your membership doesn't actually run out till the end of that next month. So that's a great tactic. If somebody cancels on the 27th and they get billed on the 1st, and you just wait 4 days, where does it say in the terms that they have to do it right away? You can, again, make cancellation doable only over the phone, but why don't you just not assign enough customer service representatives to actually process all the volume of cancellation requests that you get? That way there's a nice long wait. Let's say you have to wait an hour in the queue to cancel. Well, now you can't cancel till you have an hour to wait in the phone queue. Maybe you'll just forget. Yeah, maybe you'll just forget. Someone mentioned Planet Fitness, where you have to show up in person or write them a letter. Good example of an organization that makes it very difficult to cancel in the hopes that you'll just give up. So today's topic is nothing but the net price. Today we're going to debate whether or not it's acceptable to advertise anything but the actual true net price. Should software make money beyond the listed price? All these different things we talked about: termination fees, shipping fees, not as applicable to software, but additional fees. And if the software is retail oriented or has a real world component, then sure, shipping fees. Regulatory fees, cancellation difficulties, etc. If you think that it's moral to apply hidden fees, then you don't mind if companies add fees that they've clearly disclosed up front. So you might still not be okay with something like Adobe, where they buried the hidden fees that they were going to charge under quite a bit of obscurity. Or you might think that's fine, because remember, they did put in bold font just below the net price calculation at checkout that to get a full refund you have to cancel by X. So you might think that's fine. But the point is that you don't mind the fees, provided that they're disclosed correctly. So you don't care how a company decides to structure their pricing. If they want to kick an extra $1 fee every week, as long as they told you up front, good on them. If they want to charge you shipping on every purchase, as long as they told you up front, good on them. So assume that they've done their due diligence to disclose it to you. And you also don't mind if companies add fees that they're required to add by law as separate items, because of course fees that they're required to add by law are disclosed to all the citizens of the country. Whatever legal fees that the government added that Spirit needs to pay, well, you're a citizen of the United States. You're perfectly welcome to go and see a copy of the laws of the United States. That's not actually necessarily true, but in spirit it's true. So you're welcome to read all 16 million pages of U.S. law. You could have easily figured out that you were supposed to pay that fee every time you subscribed to cellular service or bought a plane ticket or whatever. So you might think that that's moral too, as long as the fee is something that's imposed not by the company, but by a third party. It's fine if they add it as a line item. Now, if you're on the immoral side, then you think the price listed should be it, no exceptions. Now, back to that government case, I want you to consider, if you're on the immoral side, right, how do you do it? How do you make sure that the net price that's displayed to everybody is the price for their jurisdiction and includes any regulatory fees that need to be added for them? How do you make sure that all those regulatory fees are included in the list price? So if you're immoral, again, you think that anything that's part of the cost should be included in the list price. They shouldn't nickel and dime people. Doesn't matter how well they disclose them. They should always list their prices up front. If the fees change for whatever reason, then the displayed price should also change. So example, if the price was $10 and a new regulation passes that adds $1, okay, now they have to display $11. They can't say 10 plus 1 and then just charge you the 1 separately. Caveat here is because we're Americans and we've just become conditioned to taxes being hidden all the time until checkout, because of the way our taxes are calculated regionally, it's a technological impossibility to show people the taxes that they're going to pay up front, right? So, yeah, probably don't mind taxes being hidden, just because that's what we're used to here. Europeans would probably feel a little bit differently about this. The prices that are list prices there, as we've talked earlier, usually include the taxes, but we're not used to that here, so just forget about that. Let's say all the other fees besides the taxes, the sales taxes, that's what you think is immoral to add on. Okay, and if you're amoral, you think it depends on the fee. Some fees are acceptable, some fees are not. We'll see. All right, let's head on over to Discord and see what we got.